You walk in, you sit down. A minute later, you stand up, press a little lever, and a swirl of clean water makes the entire problem vanish. Forever. You don't think about it. You never think about it. But that boring white bowl in your bathroom might be the single most life-saving machine humans have ever built. And for almost all of human history, it did not exist. So what did people actually do? The honest answer is a mix of clever engineering, breathtaking grossness, and a few thousand years of getting it catastrophically wrong. Let's start at the beginning. For our earliest ancestors, the bathroom was simple. It was everywhere. You wandered away from camp, did your business in a bush, and walked off. And here's the thing, that actually worked. When you live in a small group of 30 people and you move every few weeks, your waste just gets left behind. Nature handles the rest. The problem only begins when humans do the one thing that changes everything. We stop moving. Around 12,000 years ago, we invented farming. We settled down. We built villages, then towns, then cities. And suddenly, hundreds of people are living in the same spot, day after day, year after year. The food piles up, but so does something else. For the first time in history, humans had a poop problem. And it turns out, how a civilization deals with that problem says a lot about how advanced it really is. Some of them were shockingly ahead of their time. About 5,000 years ago, in a stone village called Skara, Brae in Scotland, people built little rooms connected to drains running under the walls, possibly some of the earliest indoor toilets we've ever found. Over in the Indus Valley, in cities like Mohenjo-Daro, it gets even more impressive. Nearly every house had its own toilet, connected to a covered city-wide sewer system. That's 4,500 years ago. Parts of the world wouldn't see plumbing that good again for almost 4,000 years. But the most famous toilets of the ancient world belonged to the Romans, and they were an experience. Picture a long stone bench with a row of holes cut into it, and 20 or more Romans sitting there together, side by side, no walls, no doors, no privacy at all. The public latrine was a social spot. You'd chat, gossip, make business deals, all while doing your business. Beneath you, a constant stream of water carried everything away into the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's great sewer, and out into the river. And now we need to talk about the sponge. Because the Romans did not have toilet paper. What they had was a sea sponge on the end of a stick. You'd reach down through a little slot at the front of the seat, clean yourself up, and then, here's the part that'll stay with you, rinse the sponge in a channel of water or a bucket of vinegar and leave it for the next person. A shared, communal group sponge. Riddled with parasites, used by everyone. Honestly, the sponge might have been the safest part. Roman sewers built up pockets of flammable gas, which means latrines were occasionally rocked by small explosions, sending bursts of flame up through the seats. And because the sewers connected directly to the toilets, the holes were also a convenient entrance for rats and, on at least one recorded occasion, a snake, which bit a man in a deeply unfortunate place. Many Romans took one look at all this and just used a pot at home, which they then emptied straight out the window into the street below. So what did everyone else wipe with, across all of history? Take your pick. The Romans had the sponge. The Greeks used smooth stones and broken pieces of pottery. Other cultures used moss, leaves, grass, snow, wool, or simply water and their left hand, which is exactly why, in many cultures, the left hand is still considered unclean today. Toilet paper as we know it didn't become common until barely 100 years ago. Then Rome fell, and sanitation fell with it. For over 1,000 years, Europe basically forgot everything Rome had figured out. This is the era of the chamber pot. You go in a pot, and in crowded medieval cities, you empty that pot out the window into the street, ideally with a warning shout first. The streets became open sewers. In castles, the toilet was a garderobe, a stone seat built into the outer wall with a long drop straight down into the moat. The moat was not just for keeping enemies out. It was also, partly, for keeping that. and cities needed someone to deal with the rising tide of waste in the cesspits below. That someone was the gong farmer. His job, only allowed at night, was to climb down into pits of human excrement and dig it out by hand, bucket by bucket. It paid surprisingly well because of course it did. One gong farmer to Queen Elizabeth I was even paid partly in brandy. But it was disgusting and genuinely dangerous. In 1325, a man named Richard the Raker was working in a privy when the rotten wooden floor gave way beneath him, and he fell into the cesspit below and drowned in other people's sewage. It is, almost certainly, the worst job in human history. But here's the part that really matters. All of this wasn't just gross. It was deadly. When human waste mixes with drinking water, it becomes a breeding ground for diseases like cholera, dysentery, and typhoid. For most of history, these illnesses quietly killed enormous numbers of people, especially children. And the truly tragic part? Nobody knew why. For centuries, people believed disease was caused by bad air, foul smells drifting through the city. They called it miasma. So they blamed the stink and completely missed the real killer sitting in their water. Slowly, painfully, we figured it out. In 1596, a man named John Harrington built a working flush toilet for Queen Elizabeth I. People mostly laughed at it. The real breakthrough came in 1775, when a Scottish inventor named Alexander Cumming added one small, genius detail: a bend in the pipe that traps a little water and seals off the smell and gas coming up from the sewer. That S-shaped bend is still under your toilet right now. And no, it wasn't invented by a man named Thomas Crapper. He was real, he sold toilets, but the word crap is older than he is. History just has a sense of humor. The final piece came in 1854, when cholera was tearing through London. A doctor named John Snow didn't buy the bad air theory. He mapped the deaths, traced them all back to a single public water pump on Broad Street, and proved that the disease was coming from the water, not the air. He had the pump handle removed. The outbreak stopped. And the modern world finally understood. Keep the waste away from the water, and you save lives. Millions of them. That's the whole story hiding inside your bathroom. The toilet isn't just a convenience. Clean water and sewage systems are estimated to have added decades to human life expectancy, more than almost any medicine. It's quietly one of the greatest inventions we ever made. So the next time you press that little lever and watch the problem swirl away, take a second to appreciate it. For 100,000 years, not a single one of your ancestors had it this good. We didn't just get cleaner. We got lucky, and then we finally got smart.